Welcome to Monster Territory, everybody. Brought to you by the Foul Territory Network. Red Sox lose on another walk-off today to the Milwaukee Brewers. Final score, 6-5. They are now 27-31 on the year. The most games under 500 all year. At this point last year, they were 29-29. I'm going to be very honest with you, and I'm really not even trying to be dramatic here. I might come off that way here. But this might have been the worst loss I've ever seen. I'm not even kidding. I've watched a lot of Red Sox games over the years. There's been a lot of bad ones for sure. But this one, there was something different about this one. This one just felt like this team just doesn't have it. This seemed like a team that was not ready to be contenders. The mistakes today were through the roof. There were so many of them. I mean, in just key situations as well, in key moments. No disrespect to the Brewers here. They won this game today. They battled today, but I feel like the Red Sox lost this one more than the Brewers won it. Again, the Brewers, they did a great job, but the Red Sox had plenty of opportunities in this one to put themselves ahead and put themselves in good positions. I can't remember a time. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there are many moments. But I honestly can't think of a time where they made this many mistakes in key parts of the game that ended up shooting themselves in the foot. This was an ugly loss today. This was an embarrassing loss today. And it honestly makes me wonder, are changes coming? Are they going to make some moves here? Are they going to make some adjustments either to the roster or to the coaching staff or whatever it may be? Because you got to remember, now let's say this was happening last year, right? That was a team where coming into the year, you were thinking, all right, let's see what this team can do. If we compete, great. If not, all right, it's not the end of the world. They didn't feel like they were fully there yet as an organization, but coming into this year, they felt ready. They made some big moves this offseason. Alex Bregman, bringing in Garrett Crochet, making other signings like Walker Buehler, Aroldis Chapman, Justin Wilson. The list goes on. Big offseason. Prospects ready to graduate. Again, you don't want to fully lean onto the prospects, but they were in a good spot to be able to contribute to a team that already had enough talent. It's unfortunate that Alex Bregman goes down, but this is a team that I feel like should still be able to put wins on the board. And they're not there yet. So expectations with this team. Is there going to be some urgency here? We got a day off tomorrow. I honestly feel like there is something about tomorrow, and maybe I'm overthinking it. Maybe I'm over dramatizing it. But if there's ever a time to make some changes, tomorrow's off day feels like it. I don't know what those changes are going to be. Who knows? I'll get into that. I'll go over what could maybe happen tomorrow. I don't know, because the Red Sox at this point, you got one more series against the Braves until you go into June. I feel like you can't go into June with the status quo. I feel like you have to do something. And if you don't do anything, what are you doing as an organization? What are you doing as a team that had sights on being contenders this year for a team that many people were picking, to get to the playoffs, to make a run in the playoffs, and maybe even get to the World Series in a wide open American League? There needs to be some urgency, and I'm very interested in what could happen tomorrow. So I'll go over some options. Craig Breslow did talk about Roman Anthony today. We'll talk about that. Alex Cora, Christian Campbell, first base, maybe in Atlanta this weekend. We'll talk about that as well. And we'll also preview the Atlanta Braves series coming up. But everybody, before I do go on, we do have some bills to pay. And we got to talk about today's sponsor.
Kratz, my pup was picky, not anymore with Spot and Tango Unkibble. And it is about 40% less expensive than frozen food. So we're saving in the wallet and we're making our pups happier.
Let's go apples to apples. I'm not cheap, but I don't want to waste my money on something that's good for my dog. This is perfect.
Yeah, they are very excited. Both Bella, Kratz's pup, and Penelope, my little pup, for Spot and Tango. You can get your pup excited too, and there's no more guessing how much to feed your dog either. Spot and Tango creates a custom plan based on your dog's age, weight, breed, and activity level. It's a nice little survey, so Upgrade your pet's bowl with Spot and Tango Unkibble for a limited time. Go to spotandtango.com/foul. Use code FOUL to get 50% off your first order. That's spotandtango.com/foul. Code FOUL for 50% off your first order. Spotandtango.com/foul. Code FOUL.
All right, let's get to it, shall we? First topic of the day. Mistakes galore. Let's break this down. There's a lot to break down here. Let's go to the first inning. Runners in scoring position left again. It's one of these things where the Red Sox, they can start well, but they just can't seem to finish the job. And I feel like this happens a lot in first innings. I'm going to have to go look up some numbers with the Red Sox in the first inning, but it feels like this keeps happening, right? Duran got the base hit, Raffy with the walk, couple of runners on, but Willier, Marcelo Meyer with the strikeout, Sogard walking to load the bases, but then Trevor Story with the pop out. He will be included in the conversation later when it comes to changes. This at-bat, it infuriated me a little bit. He took a fastball inside for ball one. Good take, right? A little inside, a little high. But then on the second pitch, another fastball inside. A little better than the first one, but still inside. And he swings and pops it up. I don't get that. But huge opportunity wasted. Second inning. You had some good things happening, right? Seti making it 1-0. We're going to talk about Seti here in just a little bit. Overall, he had himself a very good game today. Not even a pretty good game. I'd say a very good game on the offensive side of things, right? At least with the bat. We'll talk about the base running in just a little bit, but that one thing with Seti today, that is what people I think are going to remember about this one. But he did have the home run to make it 1-0. Duran, Raffy, they ended up getting on, but then Willier with another K. Third inning here. Jake Bauers with a home run, tying it up 1-1 off of Brian Bayo. Fourth inning, Hammy with the K. Wong, Seti. My goodness, Connor Wong came up with a base hit. Miracles can happen, ladies and gentlemen. But they both get on. Duran had the base hit, and here is what I'm talking about with Ceddanne Rafaela. This is the first big mistake of the day. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I was stunned. I couldn't believe what was happening before my eyes. On the base hit, Seti rounded second to go to third. Little did he know that Connor Wong was still at third base. Connor Wong did not go home. Seti did not pick up his eyes to see what was right in front of him. He looks up and then, oh my goodness, Connor Wong is sitting right there. And he just stands there and he gets tagged. Obviously, probably a pretty embarrassing moment for him. And an awful moment. Because, well, let's get to the next thing. Raffy, thank goodness, came through there with a base hit, made it 3-1. But you got to think, could this have been a 4-1 lead? Could this have been a 5-1 lead? Who knows? Maybe this could have led to a lot of other things. But Ceddanne Rafaela, again, while he did have a good day at the plate today, he really hurt his team here. I mean, this was as gut-wrenching of a mistake as you could have had, right? It felt like the air got let out of the room at that point. Again, Raffy did, pick him up there, but it could have been a much better inning. Fifth inning. Here's another interesting one. Jake Bauers with a walk. Joey Ortiz with the sack bunt. Jaron Duran had a liner hit to him, and then he dropped it. It made me... It's so funny because I think back to, when I used to play. Listen, I wasn't any great by any means, but my coaches would be red in the face screaming at you if you didn't have two hands or if you didn't catch the ball with two hands. I had coaches get so annoyed to the point where they'd make us run laps, or as they like to call it, they make us run poles. Jaron Duran, just the ball, sure, maybe it knuckled a little bit, maybe it was spinning a little differently, but that's a ball you just have to catch. This basically ended Brian Bayo's day for the most part. Another 4 2/3 innings for Brian Bayo, 77 pitches. But I'll say this, I don't really think that's on Brian Bayo all that much. He looked a lot better today. The one difference with Brian Bayo today, he worked from the stretch. He wasn't pitching from the windup. And I've been speculating about this. I've been wondering the last couple of starts, is there's been something mechanically going on with Brian Bayo. And anytime a pitcher works from the stretch, that usually signals to me that there's something mechanical going on there, right? They're just trying to simplify things. And he looked better today, right? He was around the strike zone a lot more. Sure, he wasn't, getting as many strikeouts, but this is a guy who was pitching to contact. He was pounding the zone more often. He was just closer to the zone throughout the day. But I'll tell you this, if Jarren Duran makes that catch, I think there's a good chance you end up seeing Brayan Bello absolutely go 5 innings, but then I think you could even see him go 6. Why not? At that point, it was at 77 pitches. So I think Jarren Duran, not only did he just hurt his team, right, from a run prevention point of view, but he kind of screwed over Brayan Bello there because out came Alex Cora eventually. And I understood the move here to pull Brayan Bello because, right, runs have been hard to come by as of late. And, you're trying to keep this game as close as possible. And yeah, you bring in the lefty to face Christian Yelich. You bring in Brennan Bernardino. I understand the move, but is this going to be another one of those Cora decisions where you look back and you ask yourself, should we have just left Brayan Bello in the game? I get it from a matchup point of view, and you're trying to keep the game close. And, Yelich had seen him a couple of times up to that point. But again, do you just ride with your guy? But I can also see the point of view where Brayan Bello, he's just been very unreliable in the last couple of starts, but he did look better here. I don't know. I think that's going to be something where people look back on it and they question it a little bit. I see you in the chat. Do you think firing Alex Cora is the move? I'm going to get to that in just a little bit, so stay tuned. 6th inning, Hunter Dobbins came in, and this is where I was, in a way, kind of okay with taking Bello out. I think there is room for a discussion there, room for debate on whether or not he should have stayed in. But the one thing the Red Sox knew they had was Hunter Dobbins that could come in, for a couple of innings, right? Moving into the long relief role. But immediately you could see he didn't look very comfortable, right? This is the first appearance out of the bullpen for Hunter Dobbins. First time coming in from the bullpen. And he just didn't look right from the get-go. Had command issues. He walked Contreras. Frelick, Boston College's own Sal Frelick. Nesson, are you listening? Sal Frelick with a base hit, ended up tagging up to second on a fly ball out to Seti in center field. The Brewer, he was called out, but the Brewers challenged it, ended up being ruled safe, and then Caleb Durbin with the double to take the lead. So Hunter Dobbins coughing it up there. 7th inning, Wilyer Abreu coming up with a big spot. I feel like Wilyer had all these big moments at the beginning of the year, and just lately it feels like there's just hasn't really been all that much, but came through the big-time home run here to tie it up at 4. 8th inning. Here's another opportunity wasted. Sogard hit by pitch. Story actually doing something here. Laying down the sack bunt. I actually like that. Hey, whatever you got to do to get the job done. Move Sogard up, but then Hamilton and Toro striking out. Bottom of the 8th. Durbin. Caleb Durbin, man. This guy had a good game today. Another double. Duran making up for the drop ball with a good catch off of Joey Ortiz. 9th inning, got a couple of runners on. Sogard strikes out. Another wasted opportunity. 10th inning. You get the ghost runner. Sogard at second. Story with a base hit. Hamilton with a force out, but he beat out the grounder to first base. That ended up scoring the run, making it 5-4. Carlos Cervantes, Seti, striking out with runners on, or the runner on second. Another wasted opportunity. Bottom of the 10th, Sal Frelick with a base hit. Boston College's own Sal Frelick. Collins with a grounder to Christian Campbell. You all know where this is going. Bad throw home. Again, it's one of these things. I get it. Rookies are going to have their growing pains, but it's kind of one of those things. It's like, why? And here's the thing. I feel terrible for Christian Campbell. I really do. I really do. I think the guy's going to have a great career. I interviewed him in Tampa. He's such a nice guy, man. And, when I think back to that, he got done with his BP, and I asked him before BP if he had a couple of minutes. He said he had to take BP, and he didn't forget about me. He came running over. He's a good guy. I see a guy with a good head on his shoulders, and I feel terrible for him. It was just a mental mistake, and I'm sure he's not going to make that mistake again. But he threw it home. It was a bad play. You had the double play right there. Even if you had just gone to first, at that point, but that's, again, you're going to have these growing pains, right? Especially defensively, especially for a guy who's trying to find his position right now, right? And I can hear the argument too, well, maybe you shouldn't keep moving this guy around. Maybe he shouldn't be playing at first base. Maybe he shouldn't be playing out in center field some days, right? I can see the argument there. In the end, you got to get the job done, right? And this is kind of where I look at it. And, you just so many times where the team just didn't look ready. And also, getting back to the Sal Frelick base hit, let's get back to that for a second. Let's get back to that. Justin Slayton, slow off the mound. You got to get to that. I mean, here's the thing, right? Marcelo Meyer, go back to the game yesterday. Marcelo Meyer trying to tag up from second to third base on Frelick, who has a good arm. And then today, you don't think to get off the mound a little quicker to get to first base. Why is Boston College's own Sal Frelick? Why is this guy getting overlooked? I'm not understanding that. I loved Sal Frelick coming out of the draft back in 2021. If the Red Sox had ended up with him in that draft, maybe not the number 4 pick, but they were connected with him in that draft. I really liked him as a player coming out of college, just a gamer kind of a guy, but a guy that, in my opinion, gets a bit overlooked, right? He's an undersized player, but gives me those Pedroia vibes a little bit. But again, overlooked in this series, and he came up in big spots. Good defense, good hustle. Justin Slayton, got to be better about that. And then Durbin with the sac fly to end the game 6-5. Post-game, Alex Cora, you're saying it frankly, said they didn't play well today. Well, can't argue that. Are there changes to be made? Listen, everybody, the way I like to approach things, I'm not one of those where I'm going to jump to conclusions. I'm always someone that you gotta let things play out a little bit. You gotta let things just happen. You gotta let things marinate sometimes. And I'm one of those where I'm thinking, no, it's just way too soon to get rid of Alex Cora. And people are going to ask this, right? They're, again, 4 games under 500, a team with expectations. People are going to start asking this. They already have been asking this, right? You are seeing this conversation come up a lot. But you just ask yourself, let's get away from Cora for a second. Let me get back to that. Simply put, does this team have it? They're 4-6 in extra inning losses, 6-15 in 1-run losses. I mean, listen, I'm a pretty simple guy. I look at something like that, and I see a team that's not able to come up with clutch moments. I'm seeing a team that can't seem to hang in there in the close games. Those close games, those extra inning games, those nail biters, that says a lot about teams that know how to get the job done in tight situations, right? When the pressure was up and you're breathing a little heavier, but you're able to stay cool in those moments and you're able to know your job in those moments and get the job done. This team isn't showing that. I know it might be a simple way to look at things, but I'm seeing 6-15 and 1-run losses, and I'm seeing a team that's not getting the job done in those moments, making critical mistakes at critical times. It's not even just that you're not able to come through with things, it's that you're making mistakes at the worst possible times. When you can't afford to have an error, and then you end up making the silliest errors. That, to me, says a lot about a team. I don't know, man. I see you in the chat, Bradley. I remember the 80s and 90s, so I definitely remember worse spells and games. So I'm sure there are, and I know there are more, in the last 20, 25 years or so that I've watched. I just can't think of it. This is recency bias coming into play here, but this was a tough one today. Now let's get back to Cora. People are going to say that Cora should be fired. There's going to be people that say he shouldn't be fired, right? Oh, the manager doesn't play, right? The players got to play. They got to get the job done. But I'm gonna say this, and I'm not advocating for Alex Cora to get fired. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm just laying down the facts. I'm going to lay down the facts on both sides here. The Red Sox have had successful managers over the last 20 years, right? Terry Francona winning 2 World Series for the Red Sox. His tenure lasted 8 years, 2004 to 2011. Eventually, that magic wore off, and they had to change the guard. Terry Francona, as much as I love that man, and I think, in my opinion, he's the greatest manager in Red Sox history, even his time ended. And his voice ran out. You go back to 2011, you had chicken and beer. Guys in the clubhouse not supporting the team in September when they're going through an incredibly terrible stretch. And you had that going on, right? And other things, right? Where you go back to Francona so many times where, you see reports of him having to really keep the ship upright in the clubhouse, and he was just losing it. And that, I'm not saying anything bad against Francona. It was what it was. John Farrell, to me, you had Bobby Valentine right after that. That was fun. I was talking about this today where Terry Francona probably got to the point where he was too much of a player's manager, or the players just took advantage of it. Then you went very sharp to Bobby Valentine, to more of an authoritarian kind of a guy, right? A manager's manager. I think they went too much of a change. And then they kind of steered it back a little bit to someone like John Farrell, who was stern but could connect with the players at that point. Farrell winning a World Series in 2013, but then the bad calls started mounting. Then the inconsistency started mounting, the lack of playoff success. And then you started seeing the reports that the players weren't really able to connect with him. So maybe you're at that point where you needed to bring in a player manager a bit more, someone that could connect more with the players. Alex Cora was that guy. John Farrell, right guy at the right time in 2013. Alex Cora, right guy at the right time in 2018. Is Alex Cora the right guy at the right time right now? This has nothing to do with Cora and his abilities. It's more about the situation. It's more about the culture. Does this team need something different right now? Do they need to have a different voice? Do they need to connect with someone different? And again, this is not a knock on Cora. It's just, it is what it is. And I see 27-31, a team full of talent. Sure, no Bregman, but you still got talent. I don't know. But if you look at Cora, if you want to look at some calls here, he's made some iffy calls that, I think where there's probably some overthinking that goes into it, and it's looking too much into the future that I think have affected calls that have come back to bite him. Vlad Jr. pitching to him in Toronto, first base open. Santander up next. Santander wasn't even hitting his weight. And you pitched to Vlad, right? When you had a base open. Cora said after, you're looking to, show your confidence in the pitcher, right? To try and give him a confidence boost. Well, okay. Well, in the end, it didn't work out. It's hindsight, but that happened. Greg Weissert in for a second inning. He just gave up the game-tying hit the previous inning. You bring him back out for another inning of work when Liam Hendriks is in the bullpen. Well, granted, that's hindsight in itself. Did you want to bring in Liam Hendriks at that point? Looking back on it, probably not. I mean, good chance you're probably still losing that game anyway. But you look at Greg Weissert at the time, he had just coughed up the lead. And then Liam Hendriks, the decision was, well, we didn't have any more bullpen. We didn't have any more arms in the bullpen after Hendriks. Well, in the end, you got to win the game. You're up 9-7. Hendriks at least has experience as a closer. Sure, he's still finding his way, especially at that point. But do you bring in the fresh arm? Maybe that could have been a bit of a confidence boost for Liam Hendriks at that point. And you didn't do it. You did it for Slayton, right? That could have been a moment for Hendriks maybe to give him something. And then if you lose the game, whatever. At least, because no one is going to criticize the move of bringing Liam Hendriks in at that moment. Because Greg Weissert just gave up the lead. At least if Hendriks comes in and he blows the lead, it's like, well, Weissert didn't have a good inning the past inning. Who's going to argue that he should have stayed in the game? Probably no one. And then if Hendriks coughs up the lead and it's still a tie game and you're out of pitchers, well, I don't know. You got to figure it out at that point. Something. In this series, pinch running for Carlos Narvaez. Your number 3 hitter in the lineup when runs are hard to come by, and you're taking out Carlos Narvaez for Connor Wong, who hasn't had an extra base hit since September of last year. Thank you, Jared Carrabas. And then Connor Wong flies out to end the game with the bases loaded. Taking Garrett Crochet out at 85 pitches. Guy looked great, taking him out. he's your guy. He's your pig. But you took him out of 85 pitches because you're waiting for Garrett Crochet in the second half to be fresh. I don't know. Is 15 pitches really going to make much of a difference where you could have closed out that inning? And who knows? Maybe the game goes a little differently. Taking Brian Bayo out today. Again, I kind of understood it, but would it have just been better off to leave him in when a guy that's really trying to find himself, again, you get back to what Cora said about leaving Slayton or letting Slayton pitch to Vlad, right? Wanted to show faith in your guy. Well, could this have been a moment to show faith in Brian Bayo? A guy that's been pressing to get through 5? You couldn't just let him try and finish it off? Maybe that could have been different. I think it's arguable. Everyone, I'm going to wrap it. If you are watching on Nessun right now, yes, we are now partnered with Nessun Nation. If you ever want to watch this, if you're with me on YouTube, if you ever want to watch this on Nessun, you can watch this on Nessun Nation now. It's on the Roku channel. So I'm going to wrap it up right there for the Nessun viewers. I am going to stay live here on YouTube, so don't go anywhere. But if you are watching on Nessun, thank you for joining me today. If you want to catch the rest of this, come on over to YouTube, come watch it, and then you'll see the rest of what I had to say. But if you are watching on Nessun, go enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time here on Nessun Nation. Now, let's stay here on YouTube. Lots of iffy calls for Alex Cora. Now, the question is ownership going to do something here? John Henry, Sam Kennedy. Listen, Cora has a good relationship. Very good relationship with the front office, right? But from John Henry's point of view, if you're looking at this, you just invested money into the team. Craig Breslow making moves. If you're looking at it from their point of view, you're 27-31, about to go into June. You're past Memorial Day now. You're past that checkpoint. Is this a time where, as someone, in ownership like Henry or the guy running the show in the front office, Craig Breslow, is this the moment where you feel like something needs to happen to try and get a bit of a spark in this team? I'm not sure. But listen, we've seen these guys. We've seen John Henry make moves before. A little different, right? But Chaim Bloom a couple of years ago, taking him out midseason. Dave Dombrowski. He cut the cord on Dave Dombrowski in the season. I mean, I know that's different. That's not the coach, but, he's done it. Do they do something here? Do they feel like they need to shake things up and try to salvage their season? I guess it really comes down to, do they view Cora as the long-term guy? I think that's really what it comes down to. If they feel like he is not the answer at that spot for the long term, do they want to keep going with it? He just signed a contract recently, and I keep seeing people on Twitter saying he just signed a contract. Probably doesn't happen. Again, I'm not vouching for Cora to get fired. I don't know if it's really going to make that much of a difference, to be honest. Ownership probably even thinks the same thing. Who knows? But guys that have signed contracts have been relieved of their duties shortly after. We just had Charlie Montoyo not too long ago with the Blue Jays. It's happened, right? David Bell, took him a little longer to end up getting relieved. But still, it was pretty early in his contract. Freddie Gonzalez, go back to 2016. Mike Redmond, go back to 2014 with the Marlins. It's happened. Again, I want to make this very clear, and I know I've said it a few times, so I'll say it again. I'm not vouching for Cora to get fired. That's not my preference. I'm just trying to think, what is the front office thinking here? Because when times have called for drastic measures, the Red Sox have done it. And I don't know, man. I'm just saying never say never, and everything I think is probably on the table. That's my own perspective. That's my own opinion. I'm not hearing anything. That's just what I think. If it's not Alex Cora, then what do you do? Well, do you make an adjustment in the coaching staff? Peter Fatsi? I'm sorry, I'm tired of this offensive approach all year. I know the Red Sox, they ranked 12th coming into today, ranking 12th in WRC+. The results have been there. You've seen the good bats, but it's very streaky. Sure, things even out over time, but I don't know, man. You have the most swings in Major League Baseball on the year, and you're top 10 in strikeouts. You're not doing good in high leverage situations. I don't know, man. I just look at some of the plate discipline throughout games, and I'm thinking, what are we doing? Why are you swinging at that pitch when you just took that pitch? Like, I don't know. Like, I see that a lot with this team, and I don't know, man. If no one's fired, if no one's relieved of their duties, if no adjustments are made with the coaching staff, well, any roster moves? Trevor Story? Trevor Story, he has been nowhere near his weight in batting average. I know there's more than just batting average, right? Trust me, I like my analytics too, but I think we can all agree Trevor Story has not been hitting. All right, go look at the advanced metrics. They're all ice cold. Is Story going to be able to do anything for you? I don't know. I mean, Alex Cora said today they want to try and get his bat going. Is there anything left to try and tap into? I think you've maybe saw a couple of signs today, the last couple of games. Maybe. But at some point, do you need to make some kind of a move? If you are going to send some kind of a message, is a DFA on Trevor Story the route? Or a phantom IL stint? I don't know. I also speculated about that today. I wonder if Story maybe has been working through some kind of an injury. I wonder. Bat speed's not looking good. Listen, this guy's been he's had some very fluky injuries along the way, but injuries are injuries, and I wonder if maybe there's something going on with him. I don't know. But the big question is, where is Roman Anthony? I don't think it's crazy at all and I don't think it's, I don't know, is selfish the right word, right? Us fans, we love our prospects. We love our young players. But, and people are going to say, oh, you shouldn't rush Anthony. What is there to rush? I mean, sure, Craig Breslow, we talked about it today. I'll get to the article in just a second, but Craig Breslow said there's still a couple of things that they would like for him to work on. Okay, fine. He said today he wants to work on, he wants Roman to improve on hitting non-fastballs in the zone. I guess timing is something where, I don't know, maybe they're iffy on the timing things, right? He says that he tends to let the ball get a little too deep into the zone on those kind of pitches, but, okay, fine. But really, let's all be honest here. I think the main driving force is they want to avoid Roman Anthony getting into the Super 2 eligibility range for arbitration. That's probably what it is, honestly. The whole Rookie of the Year thing, right? They want Christian Campbell to win Rookie of the Year. I mean, whatever. I don't think that's really an argument. Whatever, I don't think, I've seen people say, oh, you call up Roman, because if you call up Roman, he's going to have a better shot at winning Rookie of the Year over Christian Campbell. And, but they want Campbell to win the Rookie of the Year to try and, get the draft pick compensation for it. No, I don't think it's that. It's whatever. I think really what it is, it's a financial thing. I think they want to avoid the Super 2. I'm still sort of iffy on how everything works there, but basically, if he gets a certain amount of playing time under a certain time span, and if he ends up meeting those requirements, then he ends up getting a 4th year of arbitration compared to 3. All the players, they get 3 years of arbitration and 3 years of pre-arbitration. But if he ends up getting a certain amount of playing time within a certain time span, and he gets, the top 22% or whatever it may be, and then he ends up getting a 4th year of arbitration. Vlad Jr. is an example of that, right? And that's just more money. And yeah, 4th year of arbitration, the 1st year of arbitration, whatever, it ends up not being that much. But you look at the raises from year to year, and the raises are going to, and if he ends up being a great player, it's going to be that much more money on top of each other, right? So yeah, I think it's more of a financial thing. I think they're just waiting until it's probably there's a good amount of cushion for them to avoid that Super 2 status. That's what I'm thinking. But to me, I think it's atrocious that Roman's not on this team. I get it. I understand the business side of things. I understand the financial side of things. But if you're trying to win games, why isn't one of the best players in your organization, who I think hit a double today, by the way? I think he kept on raking here today. The guy's red hot, and he's been hot for a long time. He's got over a 450 on base. Why do you not want that player in your... Why? Why is he not up? It's atrocious. I think it's disgusting. If you call Roman up, do you move Seti to the infield, right? Let's say you end up doing something with Story. DFA, Phantom IL, move to the bench. I don't know. You know, Meyer goes to short. You put Seti at second. Christian Campbell, if he's going to first, right? We'll talk about that in a second. Well, then Sogard, he can go play third until Bregman comes back, whatever. Is that the move you make? I don't know. I guess. But you got to find a way to get Roman into this lineup. I think I've been saying that until I'm blue in the face for how many weeks now. Let's get to these comments really quick, and let's talk about the Alex Cora comments on Christian Campbell. But just to kind of put a bow on that, I don't think Alex Cora gets fired. But I'm never going to say never, right? Especially now, right? Of course, that time will come when Cora is no longer the manager of the Red Sox. But could it happen tomorrow? Could it happen at some point over the next week or two? I don't think so. But 4 games under 500, expectations coming into the year, I don't think it's the craziest thing. Chris Cotillo, he keeps putting out there that it probably doesn't happen. But again, guys have been relieved of their duties short into a contract. Cora's a different case because he has that relationship with the front office. I don't know. And what would firing Cora do? Probably nothing, honestly. The only thing it would do, and it depends on whether or not the Red Sox, the people in charge, think if it's worth it, if the juice is worth the squeeze. Do they think a different voice could save the season? Do they think a guy making, doing things a bit different could save the season? Ramon Vasquez, he did show an ability, against the Mets on a couple of games, right? Red Sox are able to come through, but Ramon Vasquez, at the end of the day, he was brought in when Alex Cora was brought back. So he's a Cora guy. I agree. Good pitching could save the season. Well, right now they're not firing on all cylinders. And, they couldn't pitch enough today. Honestly, they drove in enough runs to get the job done today. They couldn't pitch enough today. I don't know. Nothing Cora can control, but it's not about that. It's not about that. Of course, Cora's not going out there and playing. It's not about that. It's about trying to get a different voice in the clubhouse. Could that, and maybe try some different things, and maybe get a bit of a spark into the players. Does the front office think that's worth it? I don't know. Probably not. Again, Cora's not playing. He can't go out there and save the day himself. But just comes down to, do they feel like they need something different? And that's not the manager's fault all the time. It's not. It's out of his control. But is this something that he could even fix at this point? It's not anything against his ability. It's just, is this the right time for Alex Cora? I don't know. Let's get to the couple of comments here today. Greg Breslow talking Roman Anthony. Right, I just mentioned this a second ago. Here was the quote that people were talking about here today. Those are, his view on Roman Anthony coming up. Those are a few development opportunities that we want to make sure we lock in. Those are things the minor league schedule and training environment afford. Obviously, we have to balance that with our major league needs. That's a conversation that we're having every single day. He mentioned that he wants him to improve against non-fastballs in the zone. On non-fastballs in the zone, he's hitting 229, slugging 286 in May against those pitches. So they also want him to improve a little bit out in left field. Say they want him to work on reads, routes, and jumps. Sounds like they're trying to perfect things before it. Again, I think a lot of this is the Super 2 thing that comes into play. I think they're just trying to squeeze out as much as they can in this. And again, you look at the outfield, the Red Sox right now, like Seti today with the bat. It's kind of one of those things where, like, anytime Seti seems to be the obvious odd man out, he goes out there and does well with the bat today, but then he makes that big blunder on the base paths. So, Roman Anthony is on the mind of Craig Breslow. And then we had this today. Christian Campbell looks like he's going to be making his first base debut. Probably not great timing after the play at second base today. Well, then again, maybe some people think that would be good. After the play they saw him make, maybe they think it would be better for him to just go to first base. I don't know. But he said, we talked about it a few days ago. I feel... and he said, Christian Campbell says, I feel confident. There's a chance he'll play one game at first base in Atlanta. So keep an eye out for that. Again, if he moves to first... that could open up some possibilities where maybe Seti comes to the infield and then Roman can go out to the outfield. And then Duran, he can go play center field. So, and I also, I forgot to mention this as well when it came to Alex Cora. The whole thing with Rafi, right? I did a video on this on my main channel. If you want to go see what I talked about there with Cora and whether or not, he should be fired, I did do a video on that. Again, not vouching for him to be fired, just looking at it from all angles. But that's another thing that came into play with the whole Rafi Devers situation, right? Some people have been opposed to how that whole thing was handled. So maybe that could come into play too. Ownership had to, that got to the point where ownership felt like they couldn't figure it out with the front office and with the coaching staff. So John Henry himself had to fly to Kansas City and fix it but himself, right? Cora obviously didn't figure it out. Craig Breslow didn't figure it out. They didn't come together to figure it out. So John Henry said, all right, I'm just going to, as the owner of this organization, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to get on my own plane and I'm going to fly to Kansas City and I'll talk to the man myself, right? So I wonder if maybe that, even though it's not about who's right or wrong, but the fact that ownership, John Henry, had to get on a plane and try to neutralize the whole situation, could that be something in itself where maybe they're looking at things and thinking, what is going on here? I don't know. Again, it's not about whether or not Rafi should have played first base. It's just the fact that Henry had to come and do it himself, right? So I wonder if that could be at something that's coming into the minds of the front office. I don't know. But then you could look at it from the perspective of Rafi should play first base, right? I think Chris Cotillo, he reported that some guys in the organization or on the team, in the clubhouse, they thought it probably would have been a good idea for Rafi to go to first base because then it could open up opportunities in the lineup. But then there's guys who supported the decision. So it's kind of a split thing. That's why it was such a hot topic, because you had disagreements on both sides, right? So in the end, though, I'll say it again one more time. John Henry had to clean up the mess. Let's get to the Braves series. The Braves, they got off to that terrible... we just played the Braves recently. But let's take a look at where the Braves are now. I mean, they've been slumping a little bit here. Been slumping a little. I'm not sure where. There it is. All right, so the Braves, as of right now, 25 and 28. 9.5 back in the division, 5 back in the wild card race. Ronald Acuna Jr. came back, but is that helping? I don't know. Doesn't seem like it as of late. But the Braves have got a lot of talent, right? So the projected matchups. Now, this is interesting when it comes to the Red Sox perspective because, you know, Hunter Dobbins, obviously, coming out of the bullpen. So Fangraphs does have him lined up to get the start here. But is he going to get the start? I don't know. He just came out of the bullpen. So do have the day off tomorrow, obviously. So maybe I don't know. I'm not sure if he's going to get the start. Giolito should probably get the start Friday, right? Because that lines up for his start. You're going to see Walker Buehler here. And then on that, yeah. So the interesting thing is who's going to start Saturday, right? Richard Fitz, he just pitched last night. So that would be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that wouldn't be enough rest for Richard Fitz. So that's going to be interesting. You know, could that just be a bullpen game where Dobbins goes 3? I don't know. We'll see. You know, do they push Crochet to the third game? Because he'd be on normal rest at that point. He just pitched on Monday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. You know, I don't know. Does Bueller pitch maybe Saturday and then Crochet goes Sunday? I'm not sure. So the pitching matchups are going to be interesting. But for the Red Sox, you're lined up to go up against Grant Holmes, Spencer Schwellenbach, and Spencer Strider. None of the pitching matchups have been announced at this point for this series, so things are still up in the air. But Spencer Strider, he just pitched against the Phillies. So that was Tuesday, so Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So he would be lined up for the Sunday start. So it looks like we're avoiding Chris Sale, so that's good. So that's a positive in itself. But the Braves, right? These are two teams that are very up and down right now. But Acuna is back. You're going to have to worry about him. We'll see how this goes. Day off tomorrow, though. I think everyone's looking at that day off instead of the Braves series right now. Everyone, I'm going to wrap it up right there. Unfortunately, another negative show today. Wish we could see the winning, but unfortunately, it's just not happening. And I just wonder if changes are afoot. I'm not sure. But everybody, if you can on the way out, hit the like button for me. Subscribe if you're new. Go leave a comment after the show. Tell me, you know, what you're thinking about the Red Sox right now. Tell me everything that you're thinking right now about this team. I'd love to read your comments and let me know. But if you are listening to this in podcast format, if you can, leave us a review. I'd love to see any feedback that you all have to say. But everybody, I'm out of here for the day. I might be back with a possible video tomorrow. Might not be live, but we might have a guest coming on tomorrow, which I'll probably pre-record and then I'll upload. So look out for that in case that comes up tomorrow. So, but everybody, I'm out of here. Go enjoy the rest of your night. Try not to think about the Red Sox and enjoy the day off tomorrow. It's going to be nice to breathe a little bit. But everybody, thank you for joining. I'll talk to you next time.